Okay, I'm going to call this change the lever of opportunity, where I'm going to talk for a little bit about how change, in this case, quite a shocking discontinuity, something no one saw coming, how that helped new businesses start. Well, what is the discontinuity I'm talking about? Well, actually, it was the arrival of the internet, the arrival of HTML, hypertext markup language, a language which would allow someone to write something in one place and for it to be viewed exactly as it had been written or produced at the other end of the line, even if that were the other end of the world. No one really saw this coming. Do you know the story? Do you know there was a day when there wasn't HTML code and there's a day when there was? Do you know who invented it? There was a person. No, it wasn't the American ARPANET defense system at all. It was one person. I want you to go and look this up, because how many times a day do you click on a link and take it for granted that it will work and deliver what you want? One man came up with the idea. What if he had said, I want a penny, a centime, for every time anybody uses my HTML code. I would owe this guy 20 or 30 euros a day, and you would too. Hundreds or thousands of searches and links in a day, 365 days in a year. This guy would be as rich as old King Croesus, or in modern times, as Bill Gates, as Steve Ballmer, as Warren Buffett, as, you know the rich list better than I do, the Queen. So who is he? Do you know? You should go and find out. But HTML code was developed not far away from where I'm sitting. I'm in a corner of France, and it was developed in Geneva at the CERN Nuclear Physics Laboratory. No, not by the whole laboratory, by one stagiaire whose name was Tim Berners-Lee. Stagiaires spent 6 months at CERN working with literally the hottest data on the planet, given what they're doing with this amazing nuclear physics lab. The data that they were producing was instant, and the best scientific minds in the world were there for 6 months at a time. But at the end of 6 months, they went home. They were away from the machine, they were away from the data, they were away from each other. That was a real problem. So they did what all people do towards the end of a stage. You go out for a drink, you go out to have a restaurant meal with your mates, which is what Tim Berners-Lee and a group of his fellow stagiaires did. They were about to separate, move away from CERN, move away from Geneva, and be separated from each other and from the live data. So goes the apocryphal story that at this meal, Tim Berners-Lee took a napkin and started scribbling an idea for an HTML code. He wrote it down. He went back to his workplace. He wrote it up. He gave it to his boss, who said, well, it's kind of interesting, but I don't really know what to do with it. It's not that clear as an idea, but perhaps we should look into it. He didn't really see it, did he? Bit like the teacher who said on Churchill's reports, this boy will never amount to anything. Yeah, right. There was a moment where it did exist and it didn't exist, and then it came to be. And eventually we came to have web browsers, Mosaic, Netscape 1, Internet Explorer. And then we had search engines that came with us. And it moved away from being just kind of a helpful cataloging tool to being something really potentially very interesting. It changed my life because I was shown this in the very early days at the university where I was working in about 1991, 1992, about 4 or 5 years after the concept had come up. All my colleagues, apart from one, left the lecture theatre where we were shown it, saying, oh, that's a great tool for librarians. And myself and my colleague Bruce Braham looked at each other and thought the world just changed. Teaching is going to change, learning is going to change. This changes everything. And we set about developing our first websites, which went live in 1994, in fact, with discussion areas, with meeting areas, with drop boxes, with our lecture notes. It was all up there. We had our own learning environments in 1994. Okay, well, that's just me. That doesn't really mean anything in the grand cosmic scheme of things. But shortly afterwards, Bill Gates and his colleagues asked the question, okay, so we've got this thing now called a web browser. We've got Internet Explorer. Well, what can we sell on it? Well, you didn't need much, did you? You needed something where there was data. Here's a product. Do you have it? Is it in stock? How much does it cost? How many colors have you got it in? When can you deliver it to me by? What's the price? Simple database that the world can see. Microsoft, a computer company based on hardware originally and then software as well, became the world's biggest travel agent overnight with the invention of what you all know. The result of that was other people caught onto it too. 2 students at university were asking the question, how can we help with the problems of things which are dated? When things are dated, they get thrown away. Your opportunity to take a revenue, to make a profit, finishes. They came up in a 3rd year business classroom. So these are not old people, these are youngsters like you, and they came up with the idea of lastminute.com. It solved at a stroke the tourism industry's problem of having a half-empty plane or a half-empty hotel. All of a sudden you could load up, reduce the prices and sell those last-minute deals like that. It worked incredibly well. And Brent Hoberman and Martha Lane Fox made millions out of that simple idea. They had seen that this certainly did change the possibilities, and they were particularly interested because it could solve existing problems that industries already had. The problem was that those industries were interested in their own little box of stuff, and technology and the internet were over here somewhere. So they didn't see that opportunity coming. Another example, the flag-carrying airlines, Air France, British Airways, etc. Biggest in the sky with the best routes from the central capital city airports. And what happened? The internet arrived. And all of a sudden, there was a Ryanair. All of a sudden, there was an EasyJet. All of a sudden, there were low-cost competitors. Why? Because airlines no longer needed travel agents, no longer needed tour operators to sell their product. So the newcomers sold online. You did all the work with the computer screen. They didn't need a big staff behind it. They just needed you to choose your holiday from a database or your flight and to buy it online and to pay online without any commission needing to change hands. It was a masterstroke. What was the strategy that the existing airlines had to cope with that? A disaster. They were faced with people with lower costs and lower ticket prices. So to compete, they had to go online. So they had to pay to develop a new system to sell online to me and to you. But they were also continuing to sell through travel agents and tour operators. So they then needed to pay for and set up a new system which could deal with bookings in real time, made in travel agents or made by me and you online. A system that could put the two together. Otherwise, you'd sell 3 times as many seats as there were on the plane. So at exactly the same time that the new low-cost airlines had lower costs and lower ticket prices, the existing airlines put their own costs up, trying to compete by having to go on the internet and having to set up a third system, which meant that they couldn't drop their prices, which is why most of the major airlines do not have a successful low-cost operator. Air France has tried it twice and it really hasn't worked. So here we go. There are discontinuities. There are changes that come along. Some of them are predictable. You can see them coming. Some of them are not. And they come out of nowhere. But they present opportunities for the tiny little minnow to become the shark in the pool. They produce the threats that can take down existing businesses that believed they were safe and it was impossible for anybody to compete with them. Maybe we're seeing that with the current discontinuity. We're seeing that maybe with COVID. COVID is teaching us that we have to respond differently to these challenges, and that some of these responses are going to be valuable, save us money, produce business opportunities long after, we hope, COVID is finished and gone. So that's why I'm asking you to look at these things. I've just given you a couple of little case studies there. And I'm hoping that when you are looking at what's coming at us in the future, you're doing your research, you are going to see things which make it difficult for existing businesses and open the door to new businesses. I challenge you. Have a look at the news. When you see the news tonight, or you're looking online, or you're looking at TFR, whatever it happens to be. When you listen to the news, start thinking, are there businesses out there that are going to say, ooh, there's an opportunity for me? Are there people out there who should be saying, we need to do something fast, otherwise we're going to be dead in the water. We're going to have a failure on our hands. We're going to have to react now. So listen, think, and ask yourself the question, where are the threats? Where are the opportunities? Who are these threats going to hit? Where are the opportunities being presented? And how can we, you, seize them? Okay, there we go. That's the challenge for block 1. Future blocks will take your business ideas, evaluate them, and then take them and develop business plans and financial plans and marketing plans and brand plans for them. Okay, but this is how we start. We've got to have the good idea to begin with. If it's not good, it's not going to get better. If it's good, then it's going to get better the harder we work at it. Okay, there we go, guys. Thank you very much.